Okay, I think visualization might just be one of the most impactful mental tools that we can use to have success on game day, throughout our tournament run, or really in any scenario where you have to compete and the result really matters. Now, visualization is something that I think a lot of people kind of understand. It's like, oh, I'm seeing myself holding the trophy and so on and so forth. But there's a lot of other levels to it that I think people don't really understand. There's a lot of repetition that needs to happen. There's got to be a level of vividness to the visualization itself. And it's not just about picturing what will go right. It's more than these things, and we'll go into that. And I have to say, I don't think that there is any better salesman for this technique than Michael Phelps, who I believe is still the most decorated Olympian of all time. And he famously talks about how important visualization is in his preparation, and I think in some cases accredits it to his extensive success. So the reason why it is so difficult to compete and it's so different is because we have the added element of pressure, but not just pressure. We have a lot of different sensory data that our brains are just not accustomed to. And you kind of can't be accustomed to all of the differences between every single venue and country and environment that you may be competing in. So that is a world now that your brain is kind of in, where it is going to be drawn to all of the distractions because all of these bits of information are new. And so your brain's like trying to work out, like, what do I have to pay attention to? And again, if you're familiar with my content, so much of performance is about attention. Where is our attention going? And so when the pressure is on and the emotions are bubbling up because of how much the event means to you and any of your own internal issues that you may be carrying forward into that context, suddenly, you have to deal with all of these potential distractions, these potential kind of self-sabotaging behaviors that might come from your mental game leaks. There are so many things that can get in your way. And what we have to do is we have to kind of get out of our own way so that we can perform, so that we can allow all of the practice, all of the repetitions, all that discipline to really benefit us, so that we can just settle in and operate as the well-oiled machine that we have trained ourselves to be. But if we can't get out of our way, if we allow these distractions to kind of get into our mind, to take away that mental bandwidth, so now we can no longer have all of the bandwidth we need to operate in the right way. Now we're not going to be reading the game as well. We're not going to be aiming as well. We're going to be more emotional. We're not going to be as dialed in. We're not going to be in our A game. We're not going to be there. So what we have to do is we have to try to find mechanisms and tools to make sure that we are not getting in our own way and that the environment's not getting in our way either. So this is one of the areas in which visualization really steps in and helps a lot. So Michael Phelps, one of the most decorated Olympians of all time, if not still the most decorated, I haven't checked recently, is somebody that famously uses visualization because it helps with some of these issues. So when you go to a competition, he has stated there are so many things that you cannot control. There's like nothing that you can really control except yourself in competition. And when he says this, I think he's really speaking to the fact that there are so many things that you become aware of that, you cannot really control. And so that's kind of a scary environment to be in to a certain extent, because when you're in your own environments, when you're training environments, you control everything. So to now be in a different environment where you only control yourself, your locus of control it's just you as opposed to your entire environment, that's a very different feeling. So with visualization, it becomes a way to prepare ourselves. It's not just about knowing what you want to happen, but it's also about visualizing what you don't want to happen. And it's also about visualizing what could happen. And so if you see the trend here, the visualization is more about mental preparedness. It's about placing ourselves in these environments, these simulations. We're creating simulations where it's like a racing sim in a way, or a simulated environment of something. We're creating a simulation of a lot of different situations, and this is all going to contribute to mental preparedness. Because if you are visualizing situations where you're very uncomfortable, or you're visualizing situations where things are going wrong, then that's going to allow you, when you're actually there, to be able to deal with that way better, because you've already dealt with it mentally way ahead of time. And by the way, this is also a very similar concept to resolving mental game leaks. Mental game leaks kind of operate in this way, where you have to first have the awareness to understand how to identify the emotion of the mental game leak. Then you figure out, what is that emotion? What are the layers behind this emotion? What is it saying? So if it's fear, what type of fear? Am I afraid of losing? Am I afraid of letting somebody down? What type of fear are we dealing with here? And then once you kind of nail it down, maybe it is fear of losing, you then spend time like talking back to that and using your rationale to say, well, this doesn't make sense because of this reason, and this reason. Actually, I can't be afraid of losing because I actually want to lose if I'm supposed to lose, and I'd rather lose playing really well than lose not playing well, and like instead of playing to win, I'm playing to not lose. I can't improve if I'm operating in that way. So I actually want to play to always to win. And so, in those moments then when maybe you have a mental game leak that makes you really scared when you're playing, you're not taking risks in the way that you should be and all the rest of it, you've actually created a mechanism now that, okay, I'm aware of what the emotion is. I know when it happens. I know why it's there. And now I also have spoken back to it rationally. So when I see it happening in the game, I can instantly nip it in the bud. I can instantly talk back to myself again. I've done all that work already. Now, this is a very similar thing to what we're talking about with visualization. We are looking at circumstances, things that can happen, and we are trying to run ourselves through the simulation in our mind. And this is to help us be prepared, mentally prepared, emotionally prepared, be able to speak to these different things. And this is all in the aim of getting out of our own way, of allowing us to just execute the programming, win.exe, execute it. That's what we want to do. And so this is why visualization can be so critical. So, how do you do it? So Michael Phelps' coach, when he talks about this, he really recommends trying to go through some meditation to relax yourself. He recommends, the typical kind of induction in meditation, which is going to be body scanning. And if you've never done that before and you do any meditation, the idea is simply that as you're kind of sitting there and closing your eyes and lying in a comfortable position, you put focus, your conscious awareness and attention into different parts of your body. And so maybe it goes into your foot. And so how does my foot feel? Like, what is the weight on my foot? What is the temperature on my foot? Then you go up to maybe your calf. And so you're basically focusing your attention throughout your body. And so this obviously does a lot of like beneficial things, but ultimately what it is happening is, it's a control of attention. That's what you're doing. And so by relaxing and getting into this state where we are able to kind of flex our attention and we're able to calm our minds and we're able to go into the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, we're in this very relaxed state now. And so the Michael Phelps coach recommends this because what he then says you need to do is you need to try to create the most vivid version of what you're visualizing as possible. It's got to be really vivid. And his reasoning for this is because the brain is not really able to distinguish between something that's really vividly visualized versus something that's actually real. This is what his take on this is. And so not only must it be vivid, it must be rehearsed many times. And like we said, you are looking to visualize what could happen, what you don't want to happen and what you want to happen. So you can go through these different categories. And that's actually, quite a lot of work. But again, this is one of those things. If you're a competitor, and this is one of the things I love most about competing. Competing is an amazing driving force for self-discovery, and through that process of self-discovery, that feeds into this element of mastery by understanding and learning more about yourself. And you have to be honest. You cannot bullshit yourself unless you want to lose. If you want to lose, be a bullshitter. If you want to lose, be dishonest with yourself. Really as simple as that. If you're able to be honest with yourself, if you're able to look into your own soul and be like, yeah, I am shit at these things, and not be thinking to yourself, I feel bad about myself because I'm shit. No, that's not what a competitor would think about themselves. A competitor would be like, okay, I need to improve those skills. Cool. I'm glad that I know that because that's fucking awesome. I can get better. I can get better now. Everything is reframed into getting better because that's what it's all about. That's the whole journey. And I just love how positive this framing is. And that's what competition, that's what being in sports is about, in my opinion. So that's why I love it. That's why I'm obsessed with it, as you guys can tell. So visualization can be a really effective tool to mentally prepare yourself. So if things do go wrong in a very chaotic environment, you're going to be less distressed by it. And this is what Michael Phelps says as well. But the benefit that he gets is that when he gets into the swimming block and he's got his music in, He has done all of this mental preparation. So he is only at that point focused on he's just listening to the music. He's fully present with the music. And he's allowed himself to have this like a zero resistance to get into the zone instantly, because as soon as he starts to swim, like his mind's already clear. He's already dealt with everything. He's checked all of the boxes. He cannot be more, like possibly more prepared. And because you've done all of this vivid visualization of everything in your mind, it's all already happened. And so what is there to worry about at that point? Effectively, that's kind of the idea. And so this is another tool that allows you to really get out of your own way and to just execute without having your mind and your attention wander into things that don't help you. With all that said, I hope this video was valuable to you and helps you get some dubs in upcoming competitions. And if you enjoyed the content, found it valuable, I would always appreciate, of course, the subscribe button being pressed. And also you can check out my Patreon for additional ways to support me as well. As always, thank you all for watching. I can't wait to hear what you think. See you on the next one.